Hello everyone, welcome to Ultra Monster Mania, the Doomed World, where I play this game. I'm trying to give Monster Mania, the genre, another shot. So this first one, I have a weapon with about a 7-second cooldown per swing, so it's still on cooldown here. The enemies don't really have attack patterns or AI, this one just jumps. Um, this game's less engaging than the last one I played. I think I might just move on to the next game. Also, as you can see, yes, the game changed my model for a moment. I had like that really weird face. I'm not sure whether that was maybe the creepypasta that changed it. But yeah, let's give another game a shot, shall we? Oh boy, look what we have here. Do not start hating this game because it's harder. Games is supposed to enjoy and not start toxicity. Remember, this is a skill-based game. Don't dislike if you're bad at it. You're only allowed to dislike it if you're good at the game. uh, okay. What a start. This game's called Undertale Universal Massacre. It apparently uses the Monster Mania kit, but they aren't using any assets from Monster Mania. So let's give this game a shot. I shouldn't need a tutorial. Yeah, so let's give this game a shot. Right now, I will admit the game looks like it has some actual work put into it. I'm very skeptical about the don't dislike this game because it's hard. Because there are two types of difficulty, right? You have real difficulty, and then we have what I consider to be fake difficulty. Now, people might have different definitions of fake difficulty, but for an example of what I would consider fake difficulty, give a boss 10,000 health and a weapon with 1 damage. Okay, that's insanely difficult, but not for good reasons, hence fake difficulty. Let's see, unavoidable attacks are another thing I consider to be fake difficulty. Also, I'm appreciating these patterns. I will admit that out of the 2 other games I've played now, this game has actual patterns, so I can't bash them for that. Okay. We have a menu. So I'm going into all of these games with the idea of giving them a chance, seeing if they can win me over. And you know what? I'll give this game a. Its start actually seems kind of interesting. You have a few different patterns. You have the bone from the sky, the big blue wall, and a couple others. Let me see. It looks like they also throw blue bones. You have the jump attack, the flower bones. Let's see, that which would be the jump attack. I think there was one more, right? Sans, if you would. If there's another pattern, you better use it. I don't see any other patterns, so... Alright, well that was a good lineup of attacks to start the game. Now, I don't see any... There's the market. Or is this the market? That's the soul market. Wait, how many were there? Okay. Weapons. The first weapon is 120. Thank goodness. These are actually ordered based off of cost. I played a few... No, wait, they aren't all. That costs 82. For some reason, a lot of these games don't order them off of cost, and I'm not sure why. It's not alphabetical. It's not ordered on cost. So I'm not entirely sure what order system they're using. But let's go ahead and switch up the music. How about some Spear of Justice? Let's see, I'm not sure if that's too audible. There we go, that should help. Pacifist Sands, being stronger than Underswap? Okay. That just seems wrong. Pacifist Sands has less health. It takes me like 10 hits to kill Swap. And it takes me, what, 7, 8? Oh, I guess that bone zone's kind of long. But that's remedied probably by dodging in specific patterns. Okay, this one I don't like. This particular fight, I mean, not the game. Let's see. That one was easy, and I wasn't noticing a lot of new patterns. That's one trap, I guess you could say, a lot of these games fall into. Like in general, they'll come up with some new patterns, and when they do come up with new patterns, they just kind of reuse their new patterns. It's cool to have new patterns, but if you reuse them, then you're kind of in a odd spot where suddenly your new patterns feel old and unenjoyable. Like, look at how easy this fight is. It has some new patterns like the side bones, it looks like. But all in all, the developer was talking about don't dislike this game for being too difficult, when like the last one, it's currently painfully easy, and I do expect the difficulty to go up, don't misunderstand. Let's go Tough Glove, I'll pick it up for now. Gold seems to be fairly plentiful, so I don't think that's a bad call. Let's go, whoops, into the ruins now. And let's see, I need to be level 6 for the next enemy. That's pretty grindy, but okay. If you insist, there's only one little problem where damage is actually meaningless against this sand. Alright, so we'll just keep fighting here. But yeah, repetition. I'm actually curious, can I just tank it? No, I can't. Okay, that answers that question. I almost have enough health. Maybe if I purchase some armor, I can tank it. But yeah, I'm open to, hey, don't dislike this game just because it's difficult. Unfortunately, that's not entirely how it works. There is a such thing as too difficult, and if you, the developer, are trying to make a game that's difficult, you have to understand that people aren't always responsive to that. There are players, there are gamers that want difficulty, but there are also plenty that don't. Actually, I think I can kill Underswap faster, which means it might actually be more worthwhile to kill Underswap here. Because look, right, I do 15 per hit, meaning, yeah, it's way better to kill Underswap. I can progress way faster on Underswap. So, yeah. Let's see. I'd probably make regular sands worth more, or pacifist, I mean, to make them, you know, worth killing instead of Underswap. But let's continue. I'm not sure how to recommend avoiding these traps without just kind of... In terms of patterns, it's difficult because anyone can come up with a couple of new patterns, but then how do you come up with tons of new patterns? There's a reason that people in big game companies are paid tons of money to come up with good concepts. It's because it's not always easy to come up with a bunch of good concepts. Ideas can be worth a lot of money if they end up being good ideas. But anyway, I was saying something that I lost my train of thought on. I'll remember it later. Until then, let's fight Science Sands. Starting the experiment now. So this is an experiment killing me, okay. A blue beam, so I just need to stand still and I'm fine. That's easily done. Looks like Sands has a particularly long dodge cooldown. No, I was just not standing the right spot. Okay. Unfortunately, we're back to the problem where the enemies don't deal a lot of damage. So outside of the bone zone, ooh, orange. You can kind of just stand in place in a lot of these attacks. I don't know why it does the 9s first. I'm pretty sure it should do it earlier. Oh, before... Let's see. One thing I would like to quickly note is this game is labeled as being in its alpha version. So while I am criticizing some of its choices right now, please bear that in mind, that I am aware that it's an alpha version. I'm not just assuming this is the finished product. And I would say you should also not assume it'll be the finished product. But I'm still bringing up these points because, hey, I mean, I'm giving you commentary for something, right? Let's see. Yeah, this is a little annoying. Underswap is still more optimal than Science Sands. I think the developers missed that. Please do not decrease underswap sands. That's the wrong way to go about it. Increase these. To put in perspective, underswap takes 3 hits for me to kill and gives me 30. Pacifist takes about 8 hits to kill and gives me 40. Meaning, in 6 hits, I get 60, and then science takes like 10. It's no contest. So you should keep that in mind. What I'd recommend is like, okay, how do you figure out and watch out for this? The answer is you do math with your own numbers, right? You sit down, do a bit of math. If underswap is more optimal, don't nerf that. Instead, buff the more relevant things. Also, ballet shoes are cheaper than the notebook and deal more damage than the notebook. That's odd, but okay. So let's continue on. We're just going to keep killing underswap until about level 10 we unlock our next enemy. So overall, despite everything, the game seems to have enough potential that I'm curious where it goes. I do want to know, what's this AU trial thing? Also, what's the quest? Quest must not be done yet. Maybe, oh wait, I have to be level 50? And I'm assuming timeline is a reset. Doodle Spear probably requires resets too. Okay. So, honestly, I have to say, the game's way too grindy right now. Like, way too grindy. Since the fastest way to level up is Underswap Sands, and Underswap Sands gives 30 per kill, you are going to need for level 6 to kill Underswap about 5 times, assuming you start from 0, and then for level 7, you have to kill Underswap about, what is that, 6 times. And going up in the math, that probably means level 8 you'll have to kill Underswap about 8-9 times, and you have to do this until level 10. The gap is in 2 levels, then 3, then 4 levels, then 2 levels, then 3, then 5. 100%, I would make Pacifist Sands, since it takes I'd make Pacifist Sands 60-60, make it a perfect double, and then make Science 100. 100 XP, I mean. Make Science 100, and then Science is worth it. Since I have no way to boost my dodges taken per hit that I am aware of, I have to just keep repeating this same kind of boring enemy. And I can't emphasize this enough. If you nerfed Underswap, then the other fights around it would be way more boring. Now that I do 2 hits, now suddenly those other fights are even more suboptimal for me. Since why would I do a fight that takes 10 hits when I can do a fight that takes 2 hits 5 times? It's pretty easy to do the math. You would get 150 of XP and gold if you did that, or you could get 55 gold and 60 XP. And once I get a weapon that can kill Sands in a single hit, suddenly I'm progressing even faster with, in 10 hits, getting 300 as opposed to 60-50. And this is alpha, but I have yet to see any reason why I would say they had a warning that people are disliking it because it's too hard. And I'm very much judging that because there are so many... Okay, here's what I would say as a developer. I'm not a developer, but if I was, don't dislike the game because it's an alpha instead. Just tell me what you dislike about it. It's not too hard, it's too slow. It's way too slow. Like, let's look here. I'm I'm going to get to level 10. I'm going to pause here, get to level 10, and we're going to see if it gets more interesting. If not, I'm moving on to another game. I was actually thinking myself, and I have another proposal. If you didn't want to increase the XP, what if you remove the level requirement on the fights? Instead, you have like a recommended level or something. I'm not quite sure about it, but look, right? You're locked in going into the next world until you beat Undertale. So why don't you just have some kind of way to fight these early? Like, I'm willing to believe that maybe, let's say I had to kill Underswap 7 times. I'm willing to believe that maybe I could hypothetically beat Sans earlier than the intended level, especially since this is a skill-based game according to the developer. If you want it to be a skill-based game, let me try doing things early. It's it could be problematic. Players might go into an area before they're intended to and struggle. But if you want this to be a skill-based game, that could be a good choice. You have to have good patterns. So far, I haven't felt like the patterns are bad. A little dull, but I've been doing the same patterns for a little while now, so of course I'm going to think they're dull. Well, I figured I might as well pick up the empty gun now, since that gives me quite a lot of damage. In regards to armor, it's pretty expensive to get even a low bonus. Like, really, 1,000 gold for 10 health? That's quite a lot. Like, you don't get actual defense until like 65,000. Yeah, actually. Okay, at least Temi armor gives you some alternate bonuses, I guess. But a lot of these don't seem to give the best bonuses. The cowboy hat's worse than the apron and costs more. Again, that's wacky. Um, bunch of healing items. They have game passes, I swear. Let's see. Why would you buy these game passes? The game, I mean, other than support the developer, it seems pretty unnecessary since the game isn't difficult. Unless I'm missing something here. I have an empty gun now. Let's do the remaining 2 underswaps where we one-shot Sans. Yep, we one-shot Sans. And then after this one last one-shot, we can take on the medium difficulty enemy. Now, I'm very excited to see this enemy because I've been doing the same enemy for the last 3 weeks of, gameplay. Not actually 3 weeks, I'm exaggerating. Let's go ahead and head to the boss here and see what they're made of. That's what I'm thinking. Let me raise the volume on that. Okay, so where were we? Right, we're going to be fighting Sans. So let's go ahead and give Sans a shot. Hopefully Sans will be a good foe. 18 dodges, that's a lot more. What, you think I'm just going to stand here and take it? Interesting. So Sans, first of all, has a couple major differences as opposed to the previous adversaries. For one, Sans in this game has actual damage. The attacks seem to do KR and hurt, which makes Sans seem very different from the earlier ones that didn't deal KR. Sans has forced to stall the fight, which could actually get obnoxious. As an RPG game where you can increase your damage, and increasing your damage doesn't actually matter since they have a dodge health. I've encountered a couple games like this. It's an interesting decision. I feel like the dodge system does kind of take the standard RPG system out of the equation. It's kind of like an Undertale Last Corridor. What's the point of your weapon dealing damage if it can't even do anything else? And why would you play as yourself when you get so few benefits and your weapon's only good if you're fighting a health character? Like, the only time that yourself is good, the meta will just shift to dodge characters and suddenly you're irrelevant or yeah, irrelevant. So I know none of you are here for Ulk talk, but okay, so it takes 18 hits as opposed to the one hit. So now let's do some math. In 18 hits, I can get myself about 240 from Underswap, meaning Underswap is still technically more optimal than... You starting to get the issue? The one health character of an RPG system is more optimal. Also, why does Sans drop a weapon that deals damage when these enemies have dodge health? If these weapons did like more dodges, I could kind of picture it. As it stands, it's a little wacky. Yeah, these blasters hurt. Like, they actually hurt really bad. To the point where me just trying to hit Sans is not working out. And then the Bone Zone pops up and gets me for another most of my health. I'm probably going to die this time. I was less careful and I took some unavoidable damage from the force pushing me against the wrong wall. Because that's where the attacks were coming from. Literally impossible to dodge in that case. Yeah. You're an idiot, a complete buffoon. That's poor game design right there. Unavoidable attacks are never, ever fun for the player. Okay, let me just quickly highlight the problem with armor. Let's see. 15 gold. I can heal 10 health. For 150, then, I could heal 100 health. For 150 gold, the only thing I could afford is a ribbon that gives me 5 health. It's really no contest. Which one do I want more, really? Okay, sure, I could spend 357 and save money here, but is that a good investment? No. I can spend 1,000 to get 10 health, or I can spend like 900 gold on these and get what? 40? No, more. I could probably get like 50. Point is, you're not getting the best deal here. Okay, so let me actually buy a couple of these little candies because I'm curious. Where is food? Well, maybe it just appears in the fight. Okay. So let's give this a shot. Because I'm going to need to kill Sans another time to get under. Basically, next kill. Whoops. What the heck? Did Sans push me against the wall there? Yeah. Okay, so this part of the fight, Sans will just launch a ton of blasters. You're going to be careful. And really, just don't worry about getting too many hits at that first little section. If you try to get a lot of hits, the KR will mount, and you will regret it. There. And be very cautious of Sans's force attacks, because when used, you're basically ruined. Okay, so now we're going to close in on good old Sans Undertale. It seems like the dodges make attacking a little obnoxious. Just a little. I do have 2 monster candies, so I'm not as worried about dying this time around. If I mess up, I can recover. But as you can see, I'm landing a lot of hits on Sans, and it seems like Sans has periods of invincibility, meaning spamming attack doesn't really help. Let's see. 2 remaining. 1 remaining. 0 dodges remaining. And dead. And with that, now I'm actually almost level 12, which is when Underswap Papyrus becomes available. So it'll be a while before we have enough gold for the next useful armor. like the next seriously useful. Technically, some of those armors look like they'd be useful. Like the Pan's healing, for example, or Temi armor's stat boost. But in sheer health, where we need about 65,000 to get the one that gives 100 extra health. Let's see there. And now that we're level 12, I think I'm sticking this game until the end of this. The first one didn't have much. This one has me interested. So let's see. How much more? This is giving about 140 more gold and another almost 140 XP. Chill, bucko. Okay. So Papyrus has about one more dodge, meaning this is actually far more reasonable. Like, going to the fight where it was, what, 20 each? Meaning every 10 hits is about 200. This is actually probably more reasonable. Because one thing to keep in account is that there's the walk to Underswap that makes it difficult to be as affordable even though you're one-shotting. This might be the first fight in the game that has a reward that makes more sense. I'm not sure that I'm fond of it, but I'm pretty sure that just killing Papyrus here is like a guaranteed level up unless I misremember the amount of XP. That's it. I'm going to bring you back. Oh. They're throwing me in the air. Does that mean this is a second phase? That'd be pretty interesting. Anyway, Oh, okay. So then they throw me against the wall where you can get kind of unlucky with patterns. So, all in all, I think I'm ready to give a verdict on this, since I've been playing this game for a short while. Is this game too hard, and should you dislike it for being too hard? No, it's not too hard. I don't believe that anyone's disliking this game because it's too difficult, because it is. I've played games that I consider difficult. This is not one of them. Should you dislike the game for being unfinished? No, it's apparently an alpha. If it's in alpha and it's labeled right on the game's description, then that makes it pretty clear. But is the game really fun yet? Not really. It looks like they have some ideas for new patterns, but they're going to need more patterns this to keep gameplay engaging. The game's been in development, according to this, since December of 2021. So I guess that explains why they have bits and pieces done. But yeah, that I went through that whole fight, gained a single level. I'll have to kill Underswap 2 more times. I might decide to finish the first area, but I won't make you watch me go through all that. I think to go further into detail, I would describe the problem being along the lines of it feels like the creators of these grindy RPG games frequently don't really consider the perspective of you can beat these fights once or twice. So do they really need to beat these fights several times? Like me beating Underswap like 30 times? Do you really need to? Like, look at those games, usually the ones with absurd difficulty, where you just have a room full of enemies. You can challenge them in sometimes a specific order, sometimes not. And the big thing about them is that if you just beat them once, that's the whole requirement. Dang, I was so close to killing Papyrus without being thrown back. Because yeah, generally, if it's a skill-based game, that means you win once, you always win. There we go. Oh, whoops, I went one level too far. Apparently I could already fight Underfell. Well, it's fine. You're going to have great time. Okay. Let's go ahead and fight Underfell Sands now. Okay, so what's the big difference between Undertale and Papyrus. Well, the biggest thing is that this fight requires 27 dodges or 28 hits. And Papyrus, of course, required 19, I think? Yeah, 19 sounds right. So looking, and also Phil uses Force way sooner. So looking at this fight, I believe it gives about double XP for 50% more hits, basically. Less than 50% actually, but almost 50%. So following that reasoning, if it's, I need to double check if it's double, but if it is double, I think that the fight's basically more worth it. And also, if I kill this enemy like twice, depending on the XP, if I only have to kill them twice, fantastic. Oh, wow. So here's their second phase. Underswap's second phase seems to be that they are allowed to use force attacks. It didn't seem like Underswap was allowed to use force until their second phase. Now, interestingly, I think second phase might be based off of real world time. Yeah, thanks for forcing me while I was inside the blaster. Surprisingly, it didn't damage me. Either that was a bug, or the developer had foresight to make sure that that wouldn't kill people. If it was intentional foresight, good job. Because that would have been, okay, seriously, that was dumb. That was so dumb. I was massacred there. I think it might have been a bug. If the developer had foresight, it's not too thorough since, yeah, I am sorry, but that was dumb. I was doing really well, and then the unavoidable attacks started piling on. That's fake difficulty right there, kind of what I brought up earlier. I'm not surprised the game had it. It's not exactly rare in these games for fake difficulty to exist. Well, let's just buy a whole load of these since they're cheap. I'm carrying too much? Fantastic. These don't heal for a lot, I'll admit, but they're kind of worth it. 10 of them is 150, and as you can see, your gold is easily replenished. Okay, you are going to have a great time. So let's go ahead and give Undertale another shot here. The first time, I was doing really well until Sans pulled out his unavoidable attacks to even out the thing. You know, he was losing, so he needed to use something that I would struggle with a bit more, and it turns out that just declaring himself the winner and then killing me is much more effective than having to actually aim attacks. So how do you might ask, how does a game developer prevent unavoidable attacks in a case where they have enemies that use force attacks? There are a couple ways. One, upon using force, have it clear all attacks relating to that particular fight. Don't, clear attacks from other fights. You could have invincibility for the player before and after the force. I personally prefer clearing out the attacks and not having any new attacks form until a good bit afterwards, especially if it forces you to the wall where the attacks are originating from. Looks like we're in the next phase, maybe? I didn't see Sand say anything, but I'll trust that we're in the next phase. Alright. Yep, they're taking me down with them. Unfortunately for Sans, I brought healing items. Whoops. I was forced for a little bit there. Okay, well, I have more health here than last time because of those healing items. It seems like whenever you stop moving, that might be when Sans uses blasters, or alternatively, it's after blue attacks that Sans likes to start utilizing blasters. Or it could just be pure RNG, or set patterns. It depends. Right now I'm just speculating because I don't know enough to know whether patterns are designed one way or another way. Dang, Sans is beating me up. Okay. We'll probably get one more set of blasters unless we manage to kill Sans really quickly here. Like, I would love for me to clear Sans right here. Okay. And yeah, sure enough, level 18. Unfortunately, the next Underfell clear will not get me out of this completely, but I'll kill Fell one time off camera. Alright, here we go. Now what this has all been leading up to. Outer Sands. Here we go. So this is labeled a hard fight. This is why they don't keep the promises. Okay. 30 dodges, meaning not actually many more dodges than our previous foe. Alright. And as you can see, the blasters are actually a bit more obnoxious here. Mostly because they're more plentiful. The blasters seem to pretty much always be a bad RNG roll on an attack. Mostly because they just kind of are annoying. But we're managing. Let me actually drink a couple teas. The teas don't just heal you, but that is one of the main priorities. They also raise your speed by 1, meaning even if you don't need the teas to survive, you should drink them because then, you know, you're faster. And if they happen to help you survive, fantastic. Dang, you actually hurt a little bit with those little scattered bones. I'll need to keep that in mind. Okay. But now I've had a lot of tea, and I'm actually pretty fast. And that's going to make dodging way, way easier. As you can see with me in Outer, and how I am fairly well dodging a lot of attacks. Not perfectly, especially since it's a pain having to pull up the higher numbered healing items. Back to the Void. Oh, right, Undertale. I was like, do they mean Gaster? No, they mean Space Void. That does make way more sense. Oh? That's annoying, Sans. How about you don't do whatever you're trying to do to me? Not until I win, at least. Once I win, I have my XP, so it doesn't really matter, does it? Also, I'll have the door opened for future levels. Okay. Hey, Sans, you're really good at dodging while standing in place. Did you know that? Okay, let's run around. Okay. So, I really, really hope that this game is supposed to have some more diverse patterns later. Also, my gosh, please. With the whole force thing, there should not be any new instances generated of attacks after the force is done for like a good amount of seconds after. Because look at how much damage I've taken while evading attacks, because eventually Sans opted to use force and then a blaster, and while I was unable to move, the blaster did the rest. Like, could you imagine an Undertale if Toby Fox added attacks like that? How unfun that would be. Oh yeah, you're doing a no-hit? Sorry, you're dead. Okay, you died because you have skill issue. I highly disagree. I feel like I died because of the somewhat problematic addition of unavoidable attacks. Let's see. Game is an alpha, but it very much gives me a poor impression of whatever's going on with the game when the developer has right there when you join, don't dislike this game because it's too difficult. And then they make the game way too grindy and slow and essentially then add unavoidable attacks in their game, because it's very easy in this case to not have unavoidable attacks. Don't add force until you're ready for it to be a good feature. Without force in this game, suddenly unavoidable attacks drastically decrease quantity. And with that in mind, I'd say especially the whole skill issue text, it very much strikes me that the last couple games I've played, that they have the wrong idea about why people dislike their games. Like, these are issues that can be fixed. The game's in alpha, and if they manage to get it out of alpha, I hope they'd fix these issues. Like right now, a lot of these newer fights, in quotes, have the same attacks except maybe one new thing. In Outer's case, it's the star, which is a cool little attack. You have to hurry over to the side. If you have a high enough speed, you can jump over it. How about I start going through some of my teas? There we go. I think maybe I'll drink the last two, which will also get that last bit of speed for me. Yeah, those blasters are a little obnoxious, aren't they? After all, you can't really approach Sans while the blasters are happening. But yeah, just imagine Undertale, right? Where Sans has a 5% chance every turn. Instead of using one of the regular attacks, Sans uses the attack when you spare Sans. And bones fill up the box and you die, because in order to make the game more difficult, Toby Fox decided that randomly dying would make the game more difficult, and it does. But then Toby Fox is also upset that people find Sans difficult in this alternate timeline. Of course people find Sans difficult. If Sans can just randomly kill you, that's not fun. Yeah, I'm going to just run away because all these blasters are kind of... Darn it, I was doing so well until the force. So I see why this fight is labeled hard. It seems like the developer labeled it hard because they are aware that the fight has many more unavoidable attacks. It seems like blasters and force are the problematic combo. And you might notice that in a lot of these games, force is often something that I'm not sure they should have added. In a lot, and I mean a lot of these games. Like, look at Adrian's Undertale Last Corridor and how that game kind of struggled in that area. Adrian added force to the fights, and then suddenly the fights were forced. I mean, force was literally removed from Dusttale because of how poorly thought out the idea of having forces. Force in Undertale is strictly used for a very controlled pattern, right? Very, very controlled pattern. Force is not just randomly thrown in with other attacks that have unpredictable things. In these RPG single-player fights, force is instead of used in a controlled pattern, it's thrown in a random combination with other patterns. And this isn't a problem that this is the only game that has. A lot of these games will have the problem, and it seems like it isn't even on their radar that some patterns are not quite compatible. And force is one of them. Like, what do you do hypothetically if you forget to set a cooldown on force? So Sans, by pure chance, instead of using bones, just uses force. In Adrian's Undertale Last Corridor, Sans had that problem where sometimes you would be drastically past an attack, and Sans would suddenly force 3 times in a row, launching you across the room. and then would hit you with the attack anyway. And in general, if you get forced like 10 times in a row, you literally can't play the game. Those are things that you do have to kind of be prepared for. Did you design your game in mind of what if Sans does force 10 times in a row? If Sans can do that, that's something to be prepared for. Will it be good game design? Is it fun? Is it interactive? Like with PvP games, things get a little more complicated in is it fun and interactive, because you need it to be fun and interactive for both sides, and you'll find that the player often is willing to tolerate more nonsense if it's happening to the enemies or other people. Let's see, I ate a bunch of tea, consumed all the tea by eating, and now I think I might have Outer Dead. I didn't get any unavoidable attacks of major degree. Normally by this point I've been hit by a bunch of unavoidables. So I did finally win, and I think it kind of proves my point that when I finally win and defeat World 1's boss, there was no unavoidable attack that ruined me. Before I stop, I do want to take a look and see what's in World 2. Okay, I'm sorry, but now I need to get to level 25, and then after that, level 30, 35, 40, 50, 60? That's a lot of grinding you're asking someone to do. I know you're increasing the XP, and there's a good chance that maybe that's all worthwhile, but this is very grindy. Very, very grindy. I remain of the opinion, if I can beat Undertale once, then I also, yeah, I think 100% that if you can beat Sans, you can beat Papyrus. So I don't think it's crazy, the idea. Just remove the levels here and allow someone, if they wanted, to challenge Papyrus. Or if you're worried that new players will go too far ahead, go in the menu, and I'm going to turn off the music because I'm worried about Fields, Hopes, and Dreams claiming me. Toby Fox has said that the music shouldn't claim you. It still does from time to time. Have a settings option where you can disable the love requirement on the fights. Then have someone go and just go from Science all the way to Papyrus, and then they'll get way more worthwhile XP. And then from there, they farm up, get ready for Outer. But honestly, yeah, I feel like you beat Outer once. Just let me then immediately go into Swapfell. If I'm not ready, that's fine. Yeah. So, hopefully that was a good gameplay this. I'm not sure if I intend on playing another Mania game. I had another Mania game lined up. That game looked like it could be interesting, but I'm curious what you all think of this kind of. I play a Mania game and then give my thoughts on it. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of positive ones. I mentioned this before, but I usually avoid the genre of, if you can call these a genre really, of Mania games just on the basis of I'm not fond of them. A lot of them don't strike me as having the most thought out gameplay. They're often focused on the grinding side. You could argue that the no, I was gonna say the Mania games are like the simulator games of Undertale, Roblox, but I can't even say that because honestly, a lot of the Undertale themed games have very grindy things in them. Let's see. I want to fight Outertail again, but you know what? I'll fight Outertail while talking about this. This is going to be very long, and I'm not sure people will watch the whole thing. But yeah, to put it simply, you look at all these games. You have those arena games that aren't soul shatterers, and those where you have to stay in the game and wait 10 hours to get all the or to unlock like the first 5 characters. And then if you stay in there for approximately 15 months, you finally get access to the second to last character, which requires you to play the game for 1 millennia, and then you have everything. Um, I think it goes without saying that, or based on how I'm describing it, that I'm not fond of that model. You have Undertale, Last Corridor, Judgment Day, and the many fan games where they have a bunch of cool looking characters. You just have to get 11,000 wins, and then you can unlock the last character. And then they sometimes have event characters where it's like, oh, sorry, you can't even play this character because you started too late. I have a very, very mixed opinion on event characters. I'm not fond of them as a concept. Sure, I love it when I'm the one who has the event characters, but when I'm not the one with event characters, it's so disappointing. Like, there's this cool character, but I can't have them because I joined too late. And honestly, I will say that if Judgment Day kept those event characters open, I bet it would cause it to be a more seriously viewed single player game. Alright, so let's run back. I don't really think that Judgment Day cares about that. It's just a personal thought. Yeah, but event characters, if you're going to have event characters, maybe bring them back every year or something. I don't know. But I'm not personally fond of them. There are people who will die on the hill that event characters should never come back. I have discussed with this subject a couple times with some of the people who've played Undertale Last Corridor. The general argument is that they don't think the characters should come back to make it feel special for the ones that have it. Except, who cares, really? That's sort of my opinion. Who really cares about how special it is for those old players? A lot of those old players are going to quit the game. But you know who's not quitting the game yet? The new players currently playing who can't get it. Yeah, I see the problem with my argument of you can just beat them again when you end up going back and then you deal with kind of problematic patterns. I guess you could say that since Outer Tale's a RNG based fight, that you shouldn't give me a free you can now just beat Outer Tale since I only got lucky and I have to keep fighting Outer until I'm lucky, or I spend so much money on food that I can brute force it. Since obviously, if I got a bunch of legendary heroes, oh, fantastic, now I can beat it. Let's see, I think 2 legendary heroes basically matches the CTs. Yeah, I don't want to brute force it like that. That sounds so boring. Let's see. Oh boy, boosts attack when attack's worthless stat in this game. Um, I don't know why you can buy weapons, since most weapons are kind of worthless. Maybe, actually, let me check. Maybe a single weapon has like a ranged property to make it actually useful. Real knife, useless, useless. Um, yeah, these are all useless. None of the characters have health. Why would you ever want any of those? I don't know. Okay. So yeah, that was my gameplay of Undertale Universal Massacre Alpha. Keep in mind, Alpha. Hopefully you all enjoyed that. If you didn't, tell me. And if you did, again, tell me. Like, do you want me, like, to really open up another one of these Mania games and go through it? Or do you want me to, heck, even play this game again? I don't see why you would want me to play this game again, but if you say you do, I might consider playing it again. I'm not sure. Is the gameplay itself interesting or just the commentary? Those are kind of the questions I'm wondering. Anyway, with that, I hope y'all enjoyed, and I'll see you all next time. Thanks for watching.